The BYU Cougars, they handle their business in Denver, Colorado, snap a 14-year streak in the process, and hey, I love eating a crow in a win.
You are Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast on the BYU Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? I'm Jake Hatch, your host here on Locked On Cougars, your resident BYU insider. Thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. And hey, BYU did it, folks. 80-71 winners over VCU. They have advanced past the first round of the NCAA men's basketball tournament for the first time in 14 years. Let me provide some context on that just for context's sake. Many of you know that I've been working in sports radio in Salt Lake City for quite some time now. The last time BYU advanced in the NCAA men's basketball tournament past the first round, they did so in Denver. Jimmer Fredette obviously had that iconic photo that ended up on the cover of Sports Illustrated that year. Yours truly, I was an intern at KSL. I was working for Greg Wrubell that year, covering Jimmer and doing all that fun stuff. It has been a hot minute since BYU's made it to the round of 32, but it sure feels good. And yes, before y'all decide to start dunking on me, I am going to eat crow. Egor Demin absolutely made me eat my words. He was marvelous in this game. I had harbored concerns for weeks, and I back up what I said earlier in the week. I did harbor concerns that BYU needed a steady hand at the helm of this offense. Egor made me eat crow. I'm eating it right now. I will own every bit of what I said earlier this week because he answered and looked the part of the guy who could go in the top 10 of this NBA draft. I am excited to hear some of these NBA talent evaluators that talk about prospects after this performance. I'm interested to see how they break this down. Now, obviously, there's only a 2-day span before BYU takes on Wisconsin. We'll get to the Badgers here in just a minute. But you cannot look at his stat line and think anything other than that was absolutely incredible. 15 points, 4 rebounds, just 2 assists. I would have argued there were maybe at least a couple more assists out there, but scorekeepers do what they're going to do. He did have 4 turnovers, but none of them really that critical. Remember, he had that turnover in the very first possession of the game. VCU blitzed him, brought a double team, and he struggled with that play, but essentially the rest of the game, he controlled his tempo. He controlled his pace. He controlled everything about this contest. Showed the ability to hit the three-pointer, which is, was it Candace Parker who was doing the post-game comments? I heard it literally right before I came down to record here in the studio and do this, that she's like, hey, he only makes 27% of his threes, but he impressed today. Him stepping up on a big stage like this, that's going to have NBA personnel saying, hey, this kid delivered in a big moment. The lights are brighter. The stage is bigger. Everything about the NCAA tournament just ratchets up to the next level. And for him to step forward and play the way he played in this environment, so this kid is a competitor. And he saved maybe his best performance for the last. And I know the last is relative because BYU has another game now. Now it's advancing to face the Wisconsin Badgers. So really impressed with Egor Demin. I cannot take anything away from it, and I will own everything I said about him. I will own it, and I love owning it. Those of you who don't know, I'm happy to eat crow on this podcast. I have eaten crow many times over the past 6.5 years. I have done this show. I crack a mic every single day, at least 200 and conservatively 290 times a year. Trust me, I said some stupid stuff over the years, and that's the latest one, but I will happily eat it with this victory for BYU. Marvelous showing. And I said in the title here, they crushed VCU. They crushed them. Here's the thing. VCU they got within 9 at the end of the game, but that's just it was over. BYU allowed them to get within 10 points and answered every push that VCU tried to put on late in this game with a big 3 or a big bucket that said, yeah, we're keeping you at an arm's length. It was the kind of the big brother putting the hand out on the younger brother's head, letting him swing away and saying, you ain't going to hit us. It was really, truly impressive to watch BYU put their hooks into this VCU squad and essentially impose their will versus VCU imposing their own will on BYU. So I look at this whole thing and think, what an incredible showing for the BYU Cougars. They were 0-5 since advancing in the first 4 in 2012. Remember, they had that crazy comeback against Iona and then lost in the first round in 2012. They had not won in the NCAA tournament since that time. It's been a bit since BYU has made it to the round of 32. So this is a really, really cool thing. Bryce Prince, this is my first time watching live. Well, Bryce, thanks for tuning in. Spencer Cornett, let's go. You better eat crow when it comes to Jaeger. You were way off, Jake, way off. I think I just owned it, didn't I, Crandall? I'll own it. Like I said, I will own everything. If I am wrong about something, I'll happily own it on this podcast. I've said it before. I'll say it again. Matthew Stutzman, Keba never got his dunk. He did get his block, though. So really, really like this. Now, Ralph brings up a good point here. I'll throw this up here while we're doing this live. KY allowed Egor to not bring the ball up every time. That allowed him to shine. I agree. Bryce, I know you and I were talking offline about this. But they did allow other guys, Dallin Hall, Richie Saunders, Moet Mag at points, to all bring the ball up court, not forcing Egor Demin to have the ball in his hands at all times. And that did free him up to make plays. So, yeah, I'm happy. I am happy to eat crow on Egor Demin. It's really, really impressive to watch what BYU did in this game. Can't take anything away from other star players. Foussenyi Traore, I said on the podcast that one of the advantages I thought BYU had was their interior play. And Foos, he put the VCU big man on his back and absolutely owned him in this one. He had 13 points off the bench, 9 rebounds. He was matched rebounding-wise by Keba Keita. Keba was oh so close to a double-double in his own right, 9 points, 9 rebounds. He had 4 blocks, monster performance for Keba. And then Richie Saunders, as he always does, 16 points, just continues to be that steady Eddie star player that BYU has relied upon all season long. They got big performances from big-time players, and that helps BYU win this game. It's one of those games you're going to look back on with this season that legitimizes and validates everything BYU did this year. I said it before, I'll say it again, that I think the biggest thing for BYU, for me to feel validation for this BYU team, was to advance in the tournament. And that's exactly what they've done. Anything from here on out, in my mind, is house money. I know some of you probably have them projected to the Sweet 16 or maybe the Elite 8 when it comes to your brackets. Great. But for me, I just wanted to see this team prove they could be different than some of these other really good teams of yesteryear that BYU's had in the recent past that were pretty darn good teams, but couldn't get past the first round of the NCAA tournament. This team did that. Multiple of you have been saying a lot of, hey, this team's different. Yeah, they proved they're different. Like everything that I was concerned about this BYU team, I was wrong on. And like I said, I'm happy to eat crow when it comes to a game like this. They win. So you look at everything that's going on, and Jimmy said, we got to win. The rest is gravy. I agree. Now you're just playing with house money at this point because you proved that you're, like I said, you're different than these other teams. I know that 2020 team that had the NCAA tournament ripped away from them, we can always think about what if for that team, but the teams that we've seen play in the tournament over the past 14 years couldn't get past what this team has already accomplished. So it's really, really impressive stuff. Phil Morgan, stack those days. It's Kevin Young's new thing. By the way, new t-shirt from the Royal Blue Collective. I'm not being paid by Royal Blue to say this. They just launched a new shirt that says keep on stacking days, and it's pretty dope. I'm going to have to get one of those myself. I have to cop it myself. And I really do think that this is a BYU team that is different. They have proven themselves. And yeah, Randy Biggs, anything from here on out is extra frosting on the cake. Maybe so. Devin, still waiting for that crazy VCU defense I heard all about all week to show up. That's the thing about it. They tried. VCU tried to put their clamps on BYU, and the Cougars said, yeah, that's cute. We're going to put our clamps on you instead. They put them in shackles for long periods of this game. Most points scored against VCU this season, Payson Cougar fan points out. Yeah, BYU, they imposed their will on this VCU Rams squad, and that's really, really cool to see this. And I think the biggest thing is that BYU showed what they're capable of. Now, they turned their attention to a Wisconsin squad that Wisconsin did their thing against Montana. Now, Montana did hang with them, speaking of Wisconsin, for a stretch of that game, but Wisconsin will control and rolled. The two styles that Wisconsin and BYU play with, they are high tempo. I said it on social media. I'll reiterate it here. That game against Wisconsin coming up on Saturday. Now, before you ask, no game times have been set. Those won't be set until later tonight when the rest of the games are mostly in the book because they like to put, primetime window, best teams versus best teams. But BYU Wisconsin is a tantalizing game that should get a pretty prominent spot in the round of 32, just matchup wise. But the Wisconsin Badgers, they like to play high tempo, much like BYU. They fire away from three, much like BYU. It could be one of the highest tempo, if not the highest tempo game in the entire NCAA men's basketball tournament. That favors BYU. They really do like to play an up-tempo style, and they can run and gun with the best of them when they're on. Now, obviously, it's a quick turnaround. You've got essentially 48 hours to get your game plan in place. You go through a light workout tomorrow, go through shoot around on Saturday, and then you're right back at it against Wisconsin. So it's a quick turnaround here. And I really do think, okay, good point. We'll get to that in a moment. Excuse me. But the bigger point is this could be a fun round of 32 game. And if BYU makes it to the Sweet 16, that would be the third time in, let's see, doing the math in my head, nearly 50 years. They have not been to the Sweet 16 very often. The last 2 times they did it, it was with the National Player of the Year. You want to prove that this team is the different that I just talked about. Prove you can make it to the NCAA and basketball tournament Sweet 16 without the National Player of the Year. That would be something that's different as well. Do you think the collective sigh of relief from the fan base will loosen the team versus Wisconsin? That comes from Phil. Maybe so. I think the fan base is feeling pretty good about themselves. I think many of you out there, I think we're now, what are we at, 370 viewers concurrently right now. So I really do think that this team is going to feel the love Cougar Nation has for them. I'm sure there'll be even more BYU fans in the stands on Saturday because you'll have teams obviously leaving Denver and fans dropping their tickets. Cougar fans, I say relatively easy drive. It's 8 hours to Denver, but you can fly there for relatively cheap if you have the means to do so. So I'm expecting even more Royal Blue to be in the stands in Ball Arena. So that's the fun part about this. And that showed that this BYU team, they've got stones. They really, really do have a good thing going for them right now. Okay, a couple other comments here. Jay Bischoff. Hey, frosting doesn't taste good with gravy. You know what? Somebody may think that, Jay, but I'm with you. You can have gravy or frosting. Take your pick. It's frosting. It's gravy. It's all of the above. It's a win for BYU, and you absolutely love to see it for the Cougars. And a couple of things here. I want to throw this one up here real quick. They looked unsettled defensively at the start of the game. Hopefully they have a better start versus Wisconsin. Yeah, they do need to have a better start against Wisconsin because defensively it took them about 10 minutes. It felt like I felt about the 10-minute mark. That's when BYU's defense kind of really took hold. Remember, they pulled away in that second half to build that 11-point lead at halftime. And that was in the final 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes that they finally started to put some cushion between them and the Rams. But it was due to the defense. And yes, they do need to have a better start against Wisconsin because as I mentioned, the Badgers, they can gun with the best of them out there. It really is a fun thing that we're watching with this BYU squad. Brent Wilson, nice one. Even though they didn't play as well in the second half, they did take the foot off the gas at a couple of points. Remember, VCU made a couple of pushes. But to BYU's credit, as I said, got to 10 points. They'd answer back with a big bucket or a big stop. And that essentially was like, yeah, that's cute. You can try all you want. And I said it earlier. It's kind of like the big brother putting the hand on the younger brother and letting him just kind of swing away. You know, you've seen that meme, I'm sure. It really felt that way for this BYU squad as they handled their business against Wisconsin. All right, here we go. Phil, who is eating tater tots for dinner tonight? Can't be just me. Now, I didn't get a chance, or Ida has signed an NIL deal with Richie Saunders because his grandfather, Nephi Griggs, is the originator and I guess the inventor of tater tots. Signed an NIL deal, and they're giving away free tater tots. I probably should have tried to get those before I hopped on this postcast. But the bigger thing is I think that this is a nice win for BYU. As Phil mentioned also earlier, that it could cause the team to relax a little bit, knowing that monkey is off their back, to use the Steve Young analogy from all those years ago when he was with the 49ers. It really is. Okay, so a couple of you did get the free tots. Chad, got my or Ida free tots. BYU of you? Can that be a thing? Love the hat. Thank you. It's a Locked On special. They gave it to me a while back. For I'd toss it on. I was actually wearing a different hat this morning. Oh, here we go. Payson Cougar fan. If you want to take Amtrak, leaves Provo at 4:15 a.m. and arrives in Denver at 6 p.m. Well, hopefully it's a late tip if you're going to make it in time for that. But the nice part is about that. Let's see other things. R. Crandall, the Big 12 is 2-0 and the SEC is down 2 teams. I've been saying on the podcast, you heard me with Drake, I want the SEC to fall flat on their face. I want the Big 12 to have a good showing. And so far, so good. I really do think that this is okay, so you guys cashed in. Landrick got my coupon from Orida. I'm glad you guys cashed in. I'm going to have to cash in. Hopefully BYU wins on Saturday and I can cash in on my own. But I really do think it was a fun showing for BYU. They did everything they needed to do to go out and win this game. They won this game. It was not handed to them. It was not gifted, and none of that nonsense. Now, the other thing about this, Matthew Stutzman, I was impressed with how Max Shulga was locked up. He really didn't have an impact on the game. You know who you can credit that with? Mawit Mag. He continues to be this defensive eraser. He is absolutely awesome at what he's doing. So it's a cool thing to watch this BYU team really show that what we saw down the stretch run of this season, it's absolutely legitimate. That Houston game obviously had some of us spooked, yours truly included. I will admit it. I guess I'm eating crow on the Egor Demin take I had earlier this week. I own all of that. But they showed that they are a legit team, and now you're playing for it all. You have a chance against Wisconsin to punch your ticket to the Sweet 16, and then at that point, you can make it to the Sweet 16. Crazy things happen, and I want to see BYU make some history out there. So huge win. Honestly, just an absolutely huge win for BYU. Gets the monkey off their back. That 14-year streak that started when I was a lowly intern working for Greg Wrubell a decade and a half ago at KSL. Funny enough, I now work back at KSL all these years later. But it's really, really cool to watch this BYU team legitimize themselves right in front of all of our collective eyes. And that I think should do it for this BYU team. So really, really impressive stuff from the Cougars. And now they turned their attention to Wisconsin. I'm going to dig into the Badgers. I'm going to reach out to Ryan Herrings, who hosts the Locked On Badgers podcast covering Wisconsin. Hopefully we can get a crossover on the books for you guys tomorrow. So that'll be early tomorrow morning on Friday ahead of that game on Saturday. And then I'll be sure to put out a time whenever I hear it about tip time for BYU and Wisconsin. We'll have that for you guys, and obviously we'll do a postcast as soon as that game goes final on Saturday. So as always, thank you for all y'all support. You guys are the best. Thank you for allowing me to eat crow live on YouTube. But hey, like I said, I don't mind eating crow, especially when it comes into victory for BYU. So there you go. That's going to do it for this postcast edition of the show. Hope y'all are doing well. We'll be back with you guys again soon, bright and early tomorrow morning with an all-new edition of Locked On Cougars right here on the Locked On Podcast Network.